In this video, I'm going to show you how to drop the drum on the cutter head. First you want to do is take off the skids. This is your skid. The next thing you want to do is remove the saddles, which are on the inside, but the bolts are here on the outside to take them out, to remove them. And you want to leave the bearing housing bolted on so the drum doesn't drop. Then you're going to want to take the bolts out of both sides of the bearing housings. You're going to go ahead and take off your the grease line to grease your bearings so it doesn't get hung up and ripped off. And after you got all your bolts out and your grease line off, all you have to do is raise the cutter head and the drum will come right out, and it'll still be sitting on the blocks that you want to brace it up with, and you're good to go. And here's a little trick also. You want to put some 4x4s on each side and lower it down on top, and then when you do pick up the cutter head to fix to the inner liner, the drum will sit right on them real nicely, and if you need to, you can always move it around a lot easier than it just sitting on the concrete. Now once you got the drum and the cutter head back together, you want to make sure you have a free spin. Either that or you have another problem and you have to go to measurements. And we use a floating bearing, and it gives a little leeway in the cutter head for the movement of the metal. But if it moves too much, it'll hang up on the drum and it will not move. So that's where you would have to go and measure and make sure you have everything going if it stops. And for the correct measurements, you want to check below this video in the app, and it'll give you the correct measurements for each cutter head depending on what cutter head you have. And for you gentlemen out there that have the 700, here's another pro tip for you. When you're removing your saddle mounts, you know, it's kind of awkward to get into the back because it's pretty hard to do it. And if you're doing it by yourself, you can get a pry bar or have somebody else pry on it. And then you can stick your electric impact or your air impact, whichever one you have, and it'll pinch the nut in here so you can remove the bolt a lot easier if you're doing it by yourself. It's a real easy process. All right, now if you need to change your bearing, you know you don't have to drop the drum. So it's easy just to go ahead and pull your 4 bolts off the plate. Pull the plate, and you got to take out the seal that's right here. Then behind there is a snap ring. You pull it out and get it all out. Then you take the puller and you attach the puller to the hub assembly itself, and just run it down and it'll pop it right off. There's your bearing housing. You have 2 different bearings. You have a regular stationary bearing and you have a floating bearing. You don't want to mix those up. There's a snap ring is on the floating bearing is on the first groove in the hub in the back. Where the stationary bearing, the ring is all the way into the second groove, so it doesn't move where the floating bearing moves.